Debt-Free TV, in association with getoutofdebtfree.org.
I'm just trying to be democratic as always anyway. So, right, hi, my name's John, and I'm going to cover a few little things today. There's a couple of things that I've just sort of add in as a kind of footnote. I'll just wait for folks to come and get sat back down again. And hello to all the viewers as well, so, right, I'm just getting notes down. Right, it's been a while since I've been doing any of this. The last time we were at the El's Arms and we couldn't hear ourselves think, but this is much nicer. We were shouting over a curtain, I think, as a doorway. Right, so, the first thing I wanted to talk about was, and this is just a side note, but the D.W.P and job centres and how they're actually treating people when you go there. Now, I've been off the grid for a little bit. I've obviously got a YouTube channel. Sorry?
So you're all about benefits.
No, well...
What an hour it's all limits.
Yeah, well, what I've been doing is I've been assisting some friends and some other people at the D.W.P and the job centre, because the bottom line is people will go there, and the first thing that will happen is if you go to the D.W.P, you're either going for repeat assessments for PIPS assessments or disability living allowances, that sort of thing. And what's actually happening is people are being shit on. Everybody's being run into the ground. They're watching these disabled people before they've even got out of the car. Most of these buildings, like Birmingham's D.W.P, which I think is on Bristol Street, there's actually nowhere for you to park, because there's only a staff car park round the corner, so people have either got to park far away and walk there, park far away and be wheelchaired there, or park on the road outside and then have to sort of clamber out of the car and go into the waiting room, and it's filled with Group 4 security everywhere. Our friends. So, what's actually I've been doing is I've been representing a few people at both the D.W.P and the Job Centre, and I've got other people doing the same as well. And the scenario is that I am an anonymous representative of whoever is going there for their assessment. I'll take a laptop computer with a microphone and some blank DVD media, because the requirement is that if you want to record the meetings, you have to preempt that you are going to require to do that before the meeting even gets held, and then get them to agree that you're allowed to record the meeting. But when you go there, before you leave the room, you've got to actually burn a copy of the audio and present it to them, and they do the same with their copy to you, so you have this exchange of discs. And you do have to sign something, and I think it says that you won't broadcast it, blah blah blah. But every time I and a few other people have been representing people at the D.W.P, the bureaucrats, because they're not doctors or, you know, they're not really medically trained. I think the highest up I've found is a physiotherapist, and I made him state all these qualifications first so that it was all on the tape. And they basically sit there and they have to do everything by the book. They shit themselves, they don't try and belittle the patient, they do everything by the book. And all I do, and the people that I've been getting to help out doing this as well, is we just sit there and we moderate, and if they ask us who we are, oh, well, I'm just John. I'm here to represent this man or this woman, and that's it. And the good news side of things, because I might start a bit of good news, is that the vast majority of the people that we've helped have ended up not only getting a back payment of a couple or several £1,000s going back to the PIPS assessments previously, either where they've been shit on before and have been sanctioned, or where they've not been getting the right amount of money because they've been kind of, you know, screwed slightly rather than just totally cut off. And they've also been getting either what they're entitled to, or up to just under twice the amount of money per week or month, or however often the frequency of their payments is. So I think for everybody that goes to the D.W.P, that you've got to get some representation to go with you as an anonymous. Power address if you want to, take a laptop, fill in their paperwork, preempt the fact that you're going to want to record these meetings as well. Okay, because then the people that you're helping are getting a much greater chance of not being screwed. With the job centre, it's exactly the same as well. People go to the job centre, they have a one-on-one meeting with a bureaucrat who says, oh, I'm very disappointed with you, Mr. Smith or whoever, and they log on to your UJM, is it, Universal Job Match database, if people have signed up to that, or you haven't you haven't applied for 35 jobs within our job list per week. And you look on the UJM and you find out that they're all Serco, Capita, Group for Security, bailiff companies wanting to try and recruit people, and then a load of zero-hour contract companies that want you to go and scrub the floors on your hands and knees without even having a mop with a handle. One person who I helped out at the job centre, she was previously working for Sainsbury's, and they gave her a bucket that a mop goes in to rub it in, so it had even got the little thing that you squeegee bit, and a scrubbing brush, and they literally had her scrubbing the floor on her hands and knees, and that was a voluntary job in order to qualify for job seekers allowance, and frankly I think that's disgusting. So the net result is I sat and represented her over at Solihull. She ended up with the correct amount of money. She ended up not getting shit on anymore by the bureaucrats in there, and she also ended up with better job prospects from it, and them actually opening another page on their website to all these other wonderful jobs. And I think she's ended up getting the proper work experience now that other employers will actually class as some work experience, and she'd been previously unemployed for about a year and a half, and that was after having to drop out of college without any qualifications because her and her family couldn't support her money to actually go to college and do a full-time course. So that's job centres and D.W.P. I'm just going to grab my water there if I put it. It's behind me, is it? Mm-hmm.
It's behind you!
It's behind you. I'm going to keep losing my voice today because I don't know for how long. So that's the first bit. That's not even what I'm here to talk about. The real thing I'm here to talk about is, where are we? Bailiff tactics. Because on the front line, I'm getting sick and tired, and I'm looking at the camera now as well because I want the wider audience to see this. I'm getting sick and tired of watching videos on Facebook and YouTube of people getting screwed over by bailiffs that have got no jurisdiction at all. And the shorthand answer to this is you establish whether they've got lawful jurisdiction to be there by way of their statutory instrument, and if it's false, then they're a trespasser. And what I'm going to do is, rather than kind of say this is what you should do, I'm going to come up with a disclaimer firstly. This is not legal advice. Okay, so don't send me a letter going, who said you could do this? But I'm going to put it to a scenario as if a bailiff comes to my house. So you start getting these debt collectors letters, and obviously we're all educated enough to know that the debt collecting agencies have probably bought debts from people, or if it's things like parking tickets, private or council, it all sort of goes around the same way. They send all these threats that have got no actual weight behind them legally. Nobody's signing anything, there's no lawful representation on their part, therefore there's no reverse liability either. So they can come and grab you, but you've got no one to grab back. So some people like to just ignore everything and they acquiesce on the matter, and then they go through, whoever it is that's trying to pirate against you goes through the good old Northampton County Court Business Centre, or the Bulk Centre, or the pirate ship, or whatever you want to call it. And obviously there's plenty of people, including me, who has established totally unequivocally that there are no lawfully or legally trained people at Northampton County Court Business Centre. Not Northampton County Court, which is in a completely different place. One's in Bailey's Lane and the other one's in St Mary's. So it's two totally different buildings, and there's confusion there. Oh God, it's coming from a court. The county court of, and all the rest of it, which we all know about. So some people ignore it, some people send it back as return to sender because they don't want to establish that you've got the Mr. or Mrs. version of you. But like we've just been hearing from the gentleman from Australia, if you've not fully removed yourself from the system, then they're still going to try and pin you with Mr, Mrs, Miss, Dr, Reverend, whoever. So you sort of have to go with it to a certain extent. So what I would do is, I'm not saying anybody should do this, but what I would do is I would write back to them and I would notify them that I've inspected as far as I can to this point by calling the county courts that they report things are going through. Not Northampton County Court Bulk Centre, because we know that they're just the fraudsters, but your local county court, and wherever the local county court is to wherever this matter occurred. You know, if you park in a car park for too long in, Greater London, and then you get Greater London's county court supposedly being in on this, then you contact that county court and establish that they've got no record of this because it's just going through the bulk centre. because there's no contract. And then you'd also back it up by phoning your own local county court, just in case it's been passed over to the one that's close to you, because that's how they want to do things, for whatever convenience. And I would put the debt collection company, bailiffs or council or whoever it is, even pre-bailiff activity, I would put them on notice that their statutory instruments, as far as I can see, have got no weight so far, requiring them to prove unequivocally what court has given this jurisdiction, what judge, etc., when were the hearings, all the things that we know already that don't happen. We don't get court hearings, they just pass things through. You write back to them and you make sure that you've asked those questions to them, or that's what I do. So then you get that typical table tennis between them sending your stuff back as though it doesn't hit their jurisdiction, them sending you things back saying that your argument has no weight, etc. And you just keep it all because you're creating a four-quadrant. Because what I'm going to talk about now is how things can escalate beyond what the general public are aware can happen, and the fears that go along with that as well. Let's grab some more water. I'll lose my voice completely today. So, you've had the table tennis with paperwork, and then you get a letter on the floor, and bailiffs are going to come, or debt collectors, or whoever they are going to be turning up within 7 days. So, like I've been doing, metaphorically, like I've been doing with everything on the run-up to the bailiffs, having the debt passed to them, or the matter of collecting whatever passed to them, I then take up the same argument with that company as well. So say if it's Marston's or Equitable or whoever, you take up the same argument. Please prove your authority by way of demonstrating your statutory instrument, and are required to know what court it's from, the date it was seen and signed by what judge. And of course we know that there won't be any. So you've established as far as you can to that point that their argument in law has got no actual weight. So you also then, a bit later on, you start getting letters from bailiffs where the bailiff has come and dropped it through the door maybe, or they've posted it to you, and it's got Mr. Smith Bailiff. And quite, you know, commonly it's got their mobile phone number, which a lot of us on YouTube and Facebook think's brilliant. You know, oh, can anybody help us out with this one? Yeah, I'll do it. We'll jump in on it, go troll, that sort of thing. But it's with a purpose. So the bailiff has made this threat that they're going to be turning up within 4 days, 7 days, whatever. Phone them up and put them on notice as well, that when they come, I'll change how I'm saying this actually, when they come to my house, or if they come to my house, I would put them on notice. I'm going to be filming everything. All doors and windows will remain locked. Anything that, of my private property that can't be brought into my house and locked away, i.e. the car, because they're always going after the car, will be stored in a safe place. Now, put it on a friend's drive, take the reg plates off, put a piece of paper down the windscreen where the VIN number can be seen, and then it's unidentifiable. Cover it up with a car cover that pulls with a metal cord around it, and then padlocks, because it's like a shower cap then, they can't get underneath the shower cap. Put the car somewhere completely safe. If the friend's got a garage, stick it in the garage. Any property that's left outside on the garden, toys, lawn mowers, sheds that don't have padlocks on, then they might come and steal those things anyway. But you put them on notice that these are your intentions. If you come to my house, I'm going to film you. You're not going to be let in. I will only deal with you through a small window or a letterbox. Oh, to the Mark's pointing at the camera. Right, so the doors and windows will remain locked. Nothing will be dealt with without being through either a letterbox if you live in a flat and you haven't got windows to the corridors, or through a small window. At no point will anything be unlocked, and unless you can establish that your statutory instrument has the correct weight, i.e. by giving it to me as a piece of paper like you should do, then allowing me to call the supposed county courts that it purports to be from and check to see whether they've actually got a real court record of this judgment being passed down against you, then you will be deemed a trespasser and you will be required to leave. So then hopefully that might be the end of it, and a lot of the times bailiffs won't bother coming round because they're freelance or self-employed, and it's not worth the time and hassle of them actually wasting their time and effort when they're not going to get paid for it. And a lot of them know then, oh, it's one of them, isn't it? You know, one of the people in the public that knows the law and knows how to deal with it, and they're not a vulnerable person. The backside of that, though, is that we're seeing an increased amount of people who are vulnerable, who are being attacked more. If I had a bailiff issue, for example, and I don't have any bailiff issues, but if I had one, they wouldn't come to me probably, or there'd be a lot less likely chance that they'd come to me, purely because I know what I'm doing when it comes to dealing with them in the interim. So they'd go and pick on little Mrs. Goggins down the road who's failed to pay her paper bill or whatever. So then that moves on to the physicalities of a bailiff or bailiffs on your doorstep, or debt collectors, or whoever they are. You can establish whether or not they've got any legal reason to be there, and you ask them some simple questions. I require of you, or I demand that you present your statutory instrument to which you're working, and also tell me your personal details and which court you're purporting to act out of. And of course they don't give you the warrant. Others bring it on an iPad and show you a PDF copy of a pro forma. If anybody doesn't know what the definition of pro forma is, it just means paperwork for the sake of it. And good old scribble at the bottom with no judge's legible name, and then underneath it it's printed Justice of the Peace of the County Court of blah, or in the area of the County Court of blah, not the actual county court. So then what I'd do is I'd say, right, okay, well, I've called the courts in, well, the courts that are associated with this supposed matter. I can't establish that they've got a record of it. You've brought paperwork that you either won't show me or hasn't got the weight of law. Therefore, I'm converting you now from a court-appointed or whoever-appointed debt collector or bailiff or enforcement agent, whatever title they want to give themselves, to a trespasser and an intruder. So then I require of you to leave my property with immediate effect, and they don't. And I've just had a quick little update with, what's your name again? Nick from Talkie Talkie. It just reminded me of the 3 grades of trespass. Instance 1, leave my property, you are trespassing. If they don't leave your property, right, instance 2, leave the property, this is now classed as an aggravated trespass. If they don't leave on the second one, leave again, or this is now going to count as a criminal trespass. You've asked them 3 times, or I've asked them 3 times. I've then ran out of options, and I'd state this for the video, because obviously you're filming everything as well. I have now exhausted all of my possibilities and opportunities to establish whether or not your legal entitlement to be on my property and your statutory instrument are valid and carry any weight. It's at that point that a lot of people get frightened, and a lot of people are suffering with bailiffs that are putting their foot in the door, and then they're turning their body cameras down to the floor so that they can film whoever's house it is slamming the door against their foot, and they'll be there going, you know, oh, it's assault, it's assault. And then some of them might let their foot out, sit in the van, phone the police, and then the police come and arrest you for alleged assault. Okay? People are frightened of even just touching a bailiff, or I'm calling bouncers again now, even touching a bailiff, because they claim assault. Because what they, in the bailiff or the enforcement officers' eyes, what they want is, they hope that you're at home on your own, or me, they hope that I'm at home on my own, and once they've got me arrested, that they think that they've got free run of the house, because they're going to get given the keys. The cops are going to take everything off me, and they've got the keys and they can let themselves in. These are the things that they're trying to do, and these are the things that are happening. So going back a little bit before they turn up, one of the things that I would do is I would put them on notice that I've got case law, which I'll read out in a minute as well, that is unrebutted in law to the best of my knowledge. And I will take full steps to physically remove you from my property, and that using all reasonable force necessary. It won't be an attack. They would have to, you know, be trespassing. You would have to classify them as a trespasser by taking the steps to try and figure out whether they're actually allowed to be here or not, realising that they're not allowed to be here, and then go through the steps of them refusing to leave. And once you've got all this case law, it opens your eyes a little bit. And I'll read some of them out. In fact, I'll read all of them out because there's only like a few. And this is all available as copies as well, and it's available everywhere. So, and it's up to you to check if this is unrebutted in law as well, you know, because this is just, I'm merely observing this, and I'm just going to leave it here for you to all see in video form. Number one, if a bailiff refuses to leave the property after being requested to do so, or starts trying to force entry, then he is causing a disturbance. Howell versus Jackson, 1834, 6 C&P 723. But it is unreasonable for a police officer to arrest the bailiff unless he makes a threat. Bibby versus Constable of Essex, 2000, Court of Appeal, April 2000. So just a quick question on that is, unreasonable for a police officer to arrest the bailiff unless he makes a threat. Well, in this case law it's using the word bailiff, so they might try and wriggle out of these things if they're classing themselves as a debt collector or an enforcement officer. Just be aware. Number two, actually number three, there's two in there, aren't there? There's Howell versus Jackson and Bibby versus Constable. Number three, if the entry is peaceful but without permission, then a request to leave should always be made first. This is the three establishments of trespass, aggravated criminal, after you've exhausted their reasons to be there. That one was from Tully versus Reed, 1823, 1 C&P. And it goes on. I'll read it from the beginning again so that it's all there. If an entry is peaceful but without permission, then a request to leave should always be made first, Tully versus Reed. Or an employee or other person can also request the bailiff to leave, Hall versus Davis, 1825, 2 C&P 33. The point that I'd like to point out there is an employee or other person. So if you've got whatever matter going on and you have a friend or a family member or an employee, if it's a business property, that goes and protects your property, according to this case law, there's full rights to act as though you're the property owner or the tenant or whoever, and to actually physically remove this bailiff from the property. Number five, so there's two in there as well, so we had Tully versus Reed and Hall versus Davis. Number five, a person having been told to leave is now under a duty to withdraw from the property with all due reasonable speed, and failure to do so, he is not thereafter acting in the execution of his duty and becomes a trespasser, with any subsequent levy made being invalid and attracts a liability under claim for damages. That was Morris versus Beardmore, 1980, 71, CR, application 256, or APP 256. If a person strikes a trespasser who has refused to leave, is not guilty of an offence. David versus Lizzle, 1936, 2 KB 434. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because these bailiffs are trying to prey on people that even just... Yeah. He's got an itchy trigger finger now, haven't you? This is criminal law, case law. This isn't circus court rubbish where they're all in on it together. Is it over there, is it? Because the bailiffs and the enforcement and the corporations and all the rest of them, as we can clearly see, especially in Nottingham, they're playing around in county court level and family court level, because it's all star chambers effectively, there's no court de jure. But when you push things into criminal court, if you have to physically throw a bailiff out of your property and then they put claims against you for assault, that's going off to criminal court, and there things are a little bit different and you should have a proper jury. So, next one. Vaughan versus Mackenzie, 1969, 1 QB 557. If the debtor strikes the bailiff over the head with a full bottle of milk after making a forced entry, the debtor is not guilty of assault because the bailiff was there illegally. Likewise, E versus Tucker at Hove Trial Centre, Crown Court, December 2012, if the debtor gives the bailiff a good slap. Right? So, there was something I wanted to take from that, so let me just quickly have a look at the debtor. So, this piece of case law is assuming that the debtor has been identified as the debtor. So, I wouldn't necessarily worry about this whole joinder thing too much, because they won't talk to you. If you can get rid of a bailiff just by saying, I'm not going to answer any questions, goodbye, then brilliant. But when it comes to them going out on the driveway and trying to take my car, this is when I'd have to ask somebody that's got a bit more law head than I have, but with that one to play with, you might have to identify the debtor, then request that they prove their statutory instrument qualities, which obviously they're just handwritten rubbish notes, they're not real warrants from real judges. So that's one to take in. That was Vaughan versus Mackenzie, 1969, 1QB 557. And then on the last one of these case notes is good old Lord Denning. If a man enters your home without the correct paperwork, knock him the spark out. Verbatim, Lord Denning, one chap. So effectively, what I would do is, I would play these thugs at their own game, because on one hand, I would already have established that they don't have the lawful authority to be there, they don't carry the right paperwork, therefore, lawfully and legally, they translate into becoming a trespasser. So that means that you can use all reasonable force to get them out of your property, and if you do get arrested, then let them take you to court, because you cross-examine them, and you make them prove and establish that they were allowed to be there in the first place. And obviously, 99% of the time, these thugs aren't going to turn up, so you'll win by their acquiescence. Because if they do turn up, then am I right in thinking that they're perjuring themselves because they've already purported to be from a court or somewhere and you filmed it? Bambusa, by the way. Is everybody aware of Bambusa?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, none of this Facebook video live because they can take them down, and obviously don't record to the memory of your phone. Do it through Bambusa, and if you can, get somebody at the other end that you've allowed to watch your private broadcast to grab the file off. There's plenty of add-ons for Mozilla Firefox that let you snatch a video and store it separate, so then you've got a hard copy no matter if you get your phone snatched off you. So what I would probably do is I would drag the bailiff kicking and screaming onto the road outside, put them off my property, and then go back in and lock my door and then guard my property. Alright? And then if they took me to court, I'd volunteer up for arrest and I'd go down that route, and the house would remain locked. Somebody else would be there anyway, so that they wouldn't be able to get back in. Don't know if anybody's familiar with Colin Johnson from Norwich. No, he had altercations with bailiffs and police on his driveway, and he got arrested for alleged assault, which got, dismissed anyway in these sort of circumstances. And the bailiffs were hoping that they'd be able to get into his property, and they couldn't because his wife was in there, and he just shouted, "Keep the door locked, thank you, keep the kids in," that was it. So then I would basically call their bluff in court, effectively. I wouldn't worry about dragging a bailiff, putting them in a headlock and dragging them out. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't chase them down the road and then try and beat them up or something, because obviously that's premeditated. I would only be there as self-defence to protect my property or my friend's property or whoever it is. Does that kind of open anybody's eyes a little bit, or get everybody itching to get a copy of the case law, are they?
Was it whole milk, or was it semi-skimmed milk?
Oh, bottle of milk. That's a good one, that is, isn't it? So yeah, just have a load of bottles of milk ready. I don't know how big football socks get, but could you get one of them plastic 4-pointers and? No, only kidding. So I hope that's an eye-opener to not having to worry about this. Oh, you touched me, that's assault, that is right, I'll lose up the police, yeah. And how fast are the police coming out now to debt collectors phoning
Can I just say that if you actually touch anyone, it's not assault, that's battery. Assault is verbal, actual touching is battery.
Oh, is it? Right, okay, well, there's an eye-opener for me. So,
physical insult?
Yeah.
Just a heart rate?
No, if you just push somebody, is that what you're on? If you just push somebody.
If you touch anyone, that's battery.
Yeah.
If I threaten you verbally, that's assault.
If you're
right.
Actually touching you is battery, so it's assault and battery.
Right, assault and battery. Then I wouldn't really personally be worried about that, because I already know that their paperwork is false, And if that means that I'd have to kick the living shit out of a debt collector that's on my property, then so be it. It's different for different people, because for me, I'm just under 6 foot and I'm just under 20 stone, and I did martial arts for years, and I was a bouncer for 4.5 years, and I feel quite indomitable. But for a lot of people, if you're disabled, if you're vulnerable, if you're older, if you're weak, to the point where you've got this big strapping bloke who's there with his silly tabard on and his little recording badge and all that bullshit, then the easiest thing to do is keep your doors locked at all times. Under no circumstances. Get your car gone. Some people apparently, allegedly, for the cameras, some people have allegedly been selling their property through fear of having it taken off them. So some people have been selling their cars to friends, but under the pretense that their friend might allow them to use it from time to time. Just a thought. You're taking the person off of the property, basically, because that's the only way to win. Yes?
Can I just add something to what you said?
Yeah.
There's only one apparent crime associated with the non-payment of council tax.
Council tax, okay.
And that is the refusal to pay. That's the only thing that they've actually made a crime out of.
So just to reiterate,
other things can be associated if things happen during the day, during the incident. I mean, there's other crimes can be committed. But in going into it, there's only one thing that they can actually sort of look to criminalise you. If you make, as is with a lot of the sites online now, if you make a notice of conditional acceptance, and you make an offer to pay in writing,
yes,
in the first instance, conditionally obviously, but once you've done that, you have wiped away the only criminal charge associated with council tax.
So then, just for the camera then, in terms of council tax, which I haven't really touched on or dealt with really, to be honest, everything else has been sort of civil debts, parking fines, bus lane contraventions, that sort of stuff. If you refuse to pay, then they've got grounds to try and prosecute, because if in effect if you're refusing, then I take it that you're agreeing to be the person stated, and then you're saying, I'm not going to do this. Yeah. So effectively then, folks, is don't answer any questions, answer a question by asking a question. What's your name? I want to see your statutory instrument. What's your name?
Am I obliged to have one?
Yeah. Yeah. Am I obliged to have a name? You know, can I see your statutory instrument? Can I see the warrant? You know, if a policeman comes up with a criminal warrant, the first thing they do is they go, here, sir, stand back, we're here to search the property. They give you the paperwork, just like they do on the TV and in the films.
A court bailiff will also do that.
Yeah. If it's an actual court trial or hearing.
If he's got the paperwork, there's no argument.
There's no messing around, there's no hanging around on the doorstep. You get in the way, they're going to come past you.
Yeah.
But
that's the difference.
If they're bargaining with you on the doorstep, they obviously haven't got the right paperwork.
Yeah.
Full stop.
How do you stand if they've got a high court writ, as they call it?
You establish whether or not that statutory instrument has weight. Because we've seen so many supposed high court writs, yeah, I'll put you in a second. We see so many high court writs that don't have the seal from the court. And I don't mean a squashed in, embossed or debossed one. I mean just the county court of wherever's logo with the date in, and a real signature from an actual judge whose name you can sort of read, but it's got their name printed underneath, so that you can...
No signature, but it was on the internet, like they said that they got this liability order.
Yeah.
So it was actually, they marked it on the internet as they'd got a liability order. So if you went to search for it, it was officially there, but there was no signature actually on the warrant. Because
where people are noticing already that Northampton's county court paperwork is just rubbish, if they're going to the point where, well, we're going to use the real county court, but we're going to get right up to the point where the judge was supposed to sign it, it's still invalid because there's no lawful hand down of a judgment from an actual judge.
Now, I've been told by the court and the police that they don't need signatures.
They don't know their job then, I'm afraid, guys. This one's, we have got some wonderful police. We've got any police in here, actually, that have snuck in. Hey, hello, Tom. You're the sheriff now, aren't you? If he doesn't have a real signature from a judge that you can take the warrant, phone up the supposed court house and ask them, do you have case details on this? Is this the judge that's blah? Record the phone call. 99% of the time, like we're seeing with these British gas warrants and things as well, they'll have no record of it, and therefore, even if it states it's a High Court writ, it's still invalid.
There is of course, the Australian friend of ours was talking about this sort of thing. If somebody gives you an order, you are obliged to give them a bill.
Yeah, yeah.
So if they give you a liability order, if you accept that order, you're obliged to give them a bill.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant. Yeah. Well,
you can make it for, I'll give you a bill for exactly how much they're charging you.
yeah. I mean, the whole Gloucester thing. I've been away for a couple of weeks. I've been out of the country and offline, sort of thing. So I wasn't aware of this whole Gloucester thing that's come up as well. But yeah. So for the camera again, somebody sends you an order of any particular sort. Send them a bill. Simple. Look into that though, because I don't know all the background to the camera for this one. And then this gent over at the blue shirt has a question as well.
What law are you relying on to say that a warrant has to be signed? Because my understanding is that a writ, High Court writ has to be signed by a judge, and also a search warrant has to be signed. Right?
Just the same way. Any warrant that tries to force something onto you, they have to have somebody that takes reverse liability for it.
Because obviously the county court is a court of limited jurisdiction, and they get their authority from the County Court Act.
Yeah.
Right? So what actual part of the County Court Act, or what are you relying on to say that is saying that applies to a writ and a search warrant?
I'm throwing it back at them and ignoring their acts and statutes and stating that if they want to throw a lawful piece of paper at me, then a judge has to have made the decision to pass that judgment down, and they must sign for their liability.
So if they come back and say no, but it doesn't apply because it's a
then you defend your property
there's no signature
to the nth degree.
Then what do you say?
You defend your property to the nth degree.
Yeah, but when you're in court, what do you say?
Don't go to court if you have to. If you're being
if they arrest you for obstructing a bailiff, for instance, or something like that, and you end up in court, then what is your defence to say that why you didn't comply with the warrant that they had? They didn't have a signature.
Because everything that I said before, I would have established from the start off whether or not they had any real authority, which they obviously don't, and then they try and come and act on false paperwork.
So then you really, the only defence I can see, the only way of that being provided to defence is if you're established an estoppel by acquiescence.
Yeah. Well, they won't turn up, because if a bailiff turned up at your door, you had a fight with them, threw them off, they got nothing.
Yeah, but the police won't turn up. The police have arrested you for assaulting the bailiff, then the police...
Well, then the bailiff would want to be prosecuting you in a criminal court, and you cross-examine them and call their bluff.
Yeah. And use the case law that he's just illustrated.
He used the case law. Your Honour, I tried to establish from the start to this point whether or not that man who came to my property's lawful statutory instruments carried any real authority or weight. I was unable to do so. I reclassified that man as a trespasser. He wouldn't leave. I therefore had to eject him physically, and that brings us to today. That's all. That's it, literally. They didn't have the authority to be there as a trespasser.
But still, the emphasis has to be on that you're established.
Yeah, you have to have exhausted all things that you can as a man.
Establishing a stopping by acquiescence.
Yeah. If you acquiesce, then you might end up getting taken through Northampton Bulk Centre and having a county court judgment against you. But if they acquiesce, you would probably, if I'm right in thinking, wouldn't you automatically win? If you go to court and they don't turn up because they know that they're going to get in the shit.
No, I won't talk about that. Acquiescence is where you're trying to establish whether they have
we're going to have to wrap this up now because we've got this.
Alright, I'll come and talk to you afterwards then.
Twice I went to court.
Yeah.
Neither on SSC's both cases. Yeah. They never turned up in the court, but they got rubber stamped anyway. I couldn't ask anybody a question of how they managed to do this, how they did this. There was no question of anything. The judge just stamped it and said, "That's it."
Yeah, that would need further investigation then, because I don't know. That's fraud, basically, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, the last little bit that I wanted to talk about just before, because I've only got about 4 minutes left, is if you're in your car or your private conveyance or whatever you want to refer to it as, if you get stopped by anybody who has the potential to want to kidnap you out of your vehicle, Or if that happened to me, then I have a little tactic that I use. Now, it does depend on what car you've got, because there's a method with the alarm and the central locking remote control. I've got a car that's got the same goods in it as a Fiat, a Vauxhall, a Saab and some other types of cars. So, you get stopped by the whoever, then you lock all your doors, you keep your windows up. I'd have my window open about an inch so that I can communicate with the potential kidnapper. Before we go any further, kidnapper, I'm going to show you that I've double locked my car and I've deactivated the key fob remote control. Therefore, if you smash the window and try and open the doors are going to remain locked, and you're not going to get a fat bloke like me through a window. And all it is, if you double lock your car, you'll and there'll be another sound to it. Some people's cars you press twice, it locks once and then it deadlocks it. If the window's smashed, the little thing or the door handle on the inside won't unlock the door. Double lock your car, doesn't matter if the alarm keeps going off because there's motion sensors in there, it doesn't matter, leave that going. And just inform the potential kidnappers that the doors are deadlocked, you've deactivated the key fob, sit on it, pull it apart, take the battery out, sit on it. Most key fobs will just come to pieces, you know, and then you can put it back together before you set off. Demonstrate to them as well. I would demonstrate to them that there's no way you're going to smash the doors and then get in, basically. My particular car, I can go into some settings and turn off the sensors inside so that I can have all the doors locked, but it won't go off with me moving in and out, but that depends on your car. That was just the last thing I wanted to finish on, which is a little extra bit of assistance for when potential kidnappers come and try and drag you out of your property. Thank you very much.
Debt-Free TV, in association with GetOutOfDebtFree.org.